Jerry Heller, just remind us, if you will, how soon prior to his death did he marry on his hospital bed, on his deathbed?
I'm not sure. It was 2 days before. I think it was 2 or 3 days before.
Was he already in the kind of dementia that HIV brings?
Well, I'm sure that's what people will be saying.
And that's what they're saying, that he was not of sound mind when he willed everything to this woman.
Tomica is the name of the widow?
Her name is, yes, she is the widow. Her name is Tomica Woods.
Tomica. Do you believe that she married him when he was not conscious of the fact that of what he was doing?
I do know that he was not able to stand.
I'm hearing the word gold digger quite a bit.
Okay.
The day Eazy-E signed over his estate to Tomica Woods, something felt off. On paper, it looked like a husband making sure his wife was taken care of. But behind the scenes, it might have been one of the dirtiest moves ever pulled in hip-hop history. Word is, Eazy was in the late stages of HIV/AIDS, barely coherent, possibly even slipping into dementia. And somehow, during that exact window, Tomica became the legal heir to everything.
We got married at the hospital because he wasn't sure if he was going to make it through. He went through the whole list of, who to trust, who not to trust, who to look out for, who not to look out for.
For those who were close to Eazy, it didn't sit right. In fact, to this day, Tomica's name still sends tension through certain circles in the industry. Her reputation, not exactly clean, because according to many insiders, if you were around her back then, you had to watch your back.
Apparently they got married on his deathbed.
Yeah.
There's that.
Then there's that.
Was that a valid signature as a person's dying of AIDS?
Right, and unconscious.
And probably unconscious, yeah.
From Crazy D exposing how she rudely shut him and others out from seeing Eazy.
I'll never forget, that's the first time I met Tomica, Eazy's wife. She kind of came up to me and went off on me like who the f was I, What the f did I want to see him for?
To even Eazy's daughter speaking up about how she and her siblings can't do anything under their father's name.
My stepmother, she's the owner of the estate. And she didn't send cease and desist letters out to my family, to my siblings, when we just trying to sell a t-shirt with his face on it.
As well as TK Kirkland chiming in.
Essentially, she controlled the entire empire. From that point on, forever.
Many in the hip-hop industry have shown time and again that they don't respect Eazy-E wife and how she came up. Let's get into it. Eazy-E met Tomica Woods at a nightclub in Los Angeles back in 1991. Fast forward a few years, when Eazy was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS, he and Tomica got married on March 14th, 1995, just 12 days before he passed away. According to Tomica, they tied the knot because Eazy wasn't sure if he was going to make it.
He just kept apologizing because at that time, the only ones that knew I was pregnant was he and I. We got married at the hospital because he wasn't sure if he was going to make it through.
But if you ask others, they'll tell you a much different story. Many people believe that Tomica married Eazy strictly for financial gain. The biggest theory is that she took advantage of him while he was battling HIV-related dementia, a condition that can severely impact decision-making and cognitive function.
Was he already in the kind of dementia that HIV brings?
Well, I'm sure that's what people will be saying.
And that's what they're saying, that he was not of sound mind when he willed everything to this woman.
That means Eazy might not have even been fully aware of what he was signing when he made her the executor of his estate.
Eazy was lying on his deathbed, dying of AIDS, and he got married to Tomica on that deathbed.
Yes.
Signed the marriage certificate. Was it his signature? Probably. Did he know what he was signing?
Right.
And
nobody was there to protect his interests.
And here's the thing. Nobody else was allowed to be around to look out for him. According to JJ Fad, Tomica made sure no one could see him, not even his parents and children.
Because nobody was allowed to see him. She wouldn't let anybody in. So if it was the way that they depicted to be, why couldn't somebody see him? Why couldn't his kids?
Right.
Just his kids.
Oh, his own parents couldn't see him.
At one point, they couldn't.
Oh, wow.
There was no explanation as to why. This just was a lot of
mystery.
That's the best mystery.
Crazy D even backed this up, saying that Tomica rudely turned him away when he tried to visit Eazy.
I'll never forget, that's the first time I met Tomica, Eazy's wife. She kind of came up to me and went off on me like who the f was I, What What the I want to see him for?
His wife nearly got into a fight with Tomica over it, so with nobody else around to protect his interests, it's easy to see why many people think she manipulated him into signing everything over to her. And once she had control, everything changed.
My wife stood up and said, "Who the you?" Because we were all friends. We were close. I was close to the family. And I didn't never even heard of Tomica. Eazy never even mentioned her at all, ever.
After Eazy's passing, Tomica took full control of Ruthless Records. But instead of honoring Eazy's legacy, she started burning bridges. Artists under the label suddenly stopped getting paid. JJ Fad revealed that she completely cut off communication with them and their royalties stopped coming in.
We had a 10-year anniversary party.
Right.
And she invited us, reached out to us. We all came. After that, no, everything disappeared. Like no royalties, no nothing. Like everything just kind of shut down after that. No explanation. Can't talk to her on the phone.
Lazy Bone from Bone Thugs and Harmony even called her out, saying she tried to alter his music and make changes to his work without their consent.
The only problem I ever had was with Tomica Wright was when she changed the order of my solo album. That pissed me off. She took my album and switched around to her likings, and that's when I hit the roof.
Eazy's kids left with nothing. Perhaps the most heartbreaking part of it all is how Eazy's own children were reportedly pushed aside. Eazy had 11 kids, yet when it came to his multi-million-dollar estate, each of them was supposedly given only $75,000. That's nothing compared to what Ruthless Records was worth.
But a very small amount. I actually can't remember the amount right now. $75,000, there we go. And at that time, I want to say that the estate was worth, I think it was over $20 million.
According to his son, Lil Eazy, neither he nor his siblings have anything from their father's estate. He even shared a shocking story about taking his own kids to the doctor only to find out his health insurance had been cut off.
Lil Eazy-E, on my show. And, he just talked about how, his dad was worth tens of millions of dollars the times that he passed. A lot of his kids really don't have anything. He even told me a story about how, I think he took his kids to the doctor and found out he didn't have health insurance anymore.
And it didn't stop there. Tomica wasn't just keeping them from their father's money. She allegedly blocked them from making money off his name. Eazy's daughter, Remarkable, a rising artist, spoke out about how Tomica wouldn't even let her sample her father's music.
It's just crazy because when it comes down to my dad's estate, like the kids, us kids, my dad's kids, we don't have any control or any rights or anything, and it hurts us.
She pointed out that while other artists were granted permission to use Eazy's work, his own children were hit with legal threats. At one point, Tomica even sent a cease and desist letter to Eazy's family when they tried to sell merchandise with his face on it.
My stepmother, she's the owner of the estate, and she didn't send cease and desist letters out to my family, to my siblings, when we just trying to sell a t-shirt with his face on it. Imagine we can't sell a t-shirt. You think I'm gonna be able to make a song and sample my father? No. But then you let the next artist that's popping, that's blowing, that's up there do it.
Another major controversy surrounding Tomica is her alleged connection with Jerry Heller. If you know anything about NWA's history, you know Jerry was long accused of stealing from Eazy and playing a major role in breaking up the group. Many believe that Tomica and Jerry may have been working together behind the scenes to drain Eazy's wealth. But according to Jerry Heller, it was impossible for him to have stolen anything. But then, in another interview, he casually mentioned that Ruthless Records was making $10 million per month.
And I said, well, let me just think this through for a second. We're doing about $10 million a month. You're the biggest group in the world.
So if the label was pulling in that kind of money, why were the artists getting paid scraps? For example, Ice Cube claimed he was only getting $75K.
They knew where I was coming from, and they clowned me when I didn't sign that contract, man.
And it really was 70,000? It was
75 G.
In Straight Outta Compton, Jerry Heller was portrayed exactly how many believed he was, a shady businessman who was stealing from the artists. But Heller wasn't having it. He called out both Dr. Dre and Ice Cube and even sued them for defamation.
They're saying things about me in that film that not only are not true, but they're very demeaning and degrading.
Who do you think it is?
Well, I think it was a combination of Ice Cube, and Dr. Dre.
Still, most fans blame him for the downfall of NWA. Ice Cube left first, then Dre, and things only got messier when Dre brought Suge Knight into the picture. That move dragged Eazy-E into the drama and nearly cost him his life. According to Suge, Dre even put a hit out on Eazy, allegedly asking him to take him out. Recently, Suge did another jailhouse interview where he spoke about the infamous story of how he supposedly strong-armed Eazy into letting Dre go. But Suge says that's not what happened at all. He claims there was no need to intimidate Eazy because they actually sat down and had a real conversation. In fact, according to Suge, they even discussed the idea of merging their record labels at one point.
But I didn't have to intimidate him. I had a real conversation with Eazy. I said, I got at you as a man to man, one black man to the other, and say, you can keep Ruthless, I'm gonna have Death Row, we can combine them together.
According to Suge, Eazy was skeptical at first and wanted to know where Dre stood before making any decisions, but Suge told him straight up, Eazy, you don't want to see Dre. Supposedly, Dre didn't just want to leave Ruthless. Suge claims Dre actually wanted Eazy-E dead.
He said, well, he wanted to know where Andre was at. I said, you don't want to involve Andre. That motherfucker wants you dead.
Eazy didn't believe it at first. He allegedly told Suge that after everything he had done for Dre, there was no way Dre would turn on him like that. Suge says he just nodded and agreed to prove it. That's when he called Dre and put the phone on speaker. And according to Suge, the moment Dre picked up, he didn't even say hello. He just straight up asked if Eazy was dead.
So I called Andre. He answered. The first thing he said, is that motherfucker dead yet?
Suge says he motioned for Eazy to stay quiet and kept the conversation going. Dre allegedly kept pushing, asking again if Eazy was gone yet. When Suge finally said Eazy was on his way over, Dre supposedly told him to beat up Eazy and shoot him.
He wanted me to beat the of him, shoot him in the head, and shoot him in his eye.
But it didn't stop there. Suge claims he baited Dre a little, bringing up how Eazy's mother would feel if her son was murdered like that. And according to Suge, Dre didn't flinch. He allegedly said that Suge could kill Eazy's mother too.
I said, you don't think his mother's gonna feel bad enough that he dead, that if I shoot him in his eye and shoot him in his mouth and his face, they're gonna have to have a closed casket funeral? He's like, you can go that too. You know she stayed right on Compton.
Suge says that's when he saw something shift in Eazy. The tough, ruthless CEO of Ruthless Records wasn't just angry, he was heartbroken. Suge even claims Eazy shed a tear right then and there.
I've never in my life seen a grown man look so sad. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't have nothing. He wouldn't be nothing. He want me dead. And my mama? Tears flowed down.
Now, if Suge really was the villain in this situation, he could have just followed Dre's supposed orders. But he says that seeing Eazy like that made him change his approach. Instead of handling it with violence, he decided to handle it like a businessman. He gave Eazy two choices. They could settle it in court, or they could handle it right then and there. And feeling like he had no real option, Eazy signed the papers on the spot, officially letting Dre go. Suge admits that in a way, he felt like he was doing the devil's work that day. But at the same time, he justifies it by saying that he actually saved Eazy and his mother's lives. He claims that if Dre had asked someone else to take care of it, Eazy might not have made it out alive that day. But of course, most people don't take that claim too seriously. Eazy had solid street connections, and if anyone had really tried to move on him, it wouldn't have gone down so easily. Eazy was heavily tied to the Southside Crips, who were a major force in Compton. One of his key connections was with Keef D, a well-known figure in the Compton gang scene. Keef D's family even owned Compton Hydraulics, a car shop on Long Beach Boulevard in Compton. This wasn't just a place for car repairs. It was a hub where street culture, music, and business overlapped. Eazy grew up right in the middle of Southside Crip territory in the Kelly Park Compton Crip neighborhood. His close ties to Keef D's brother Kevin made him part of that circle in a way that went beyond music. In 1993, when Eazy filmed the video for his iconic diss track Real Mother, he wasn't just throwing subliminal shots, he was making a statement. The video is packed with imagery that ties Eazy to the Southside Crips. One standout car, known as the Gangster of Love, was said to belong to either a prominent Southside Crip named Big Spank or someone from Keef D's family.
This is the season to let the real motherfucking G's in.
The people featured in the video weren't just extras, they were part of Eazy's world. Some of them throwing up Southside Crips signs, rocking Seattle Mariners hats, a known Crip emblem with the S for Southside, and decked out in blue, the gang's color. Eazy himself sported a blue Mariners cap with a yellow S, cementing his affiliation in plain view. So yeah, Eazy-E's connections were no joke. But circling back to Jerry Heller, before he passed, he became one of the most hated figures in hip-hop history. Eazy had deep connections with some of the most serious figures out there, like the Mexican Mafia. Eazy always had a deep respect for Chicano culture and was genuinely into the Latin side of hip-hop. That love for the scene led him to sign Brownside, a Chicano rap group led by the late Toker, a real street legend.
Eric was always into the Chicano rap, and well, not even Chicano rap, he was just into the Latinos, because he knew that they were his fans. He had already signed the Brownside, and then he ended up signing Kid Frost, and we ended up working on the Brownside record, you know what I mean? And you know, that was his thing. He thought everything was about the Latinos, you know what I mean?
According to Toker, the connection with Eazy happened pretty naturally. Eazy heard one of Brownside's tracks through a mutual acquaintance, and the rest was history. He reached out, they met up, and from there, it was all love.
How you hook up with Eazy-E? Because, I mean, you're on Ruthless Records now.
Yeah, we plugged up with the homie 3 years ago. He heard our music through some other people. He found out we're real motherfuckers from the streets, you know? So he wanted to f with us.
But the Brownside wasn't just a rap group trying to make it big. These guys were the real deal. They were gang affiliated and had serious weight in the streets. People who knew them back then would often say that just standing in the same room with these dudes was enough to make someone's knees buckle. Their reputation was no joke.
Toker, yeah, they were on Ruthless, man, yeah. Another dude that ain't no joke. Toker was one of the few cats that I just was nervous.
He's raw as hell, basically.
He just one of them dudes. He's cool. He was super cool.
Yeah.
He's super cool. But you can tell it's a gun somewhere. It's strapped somewhere around here.
Real motherfucker. These guys ain't rappers. These guys are real gangsters. Because I worked with other gangster rappers. These guys are real.
That's part of what drew Eazy to them. He loved how the Latino gangs treated each other like family, loyal to the core, no questions asked. To them, your homies were your blood, and they'd go to war for you in a heartbeat. Eazy admired that ride-or-die mentality and kept them close. He knew that if things ever turned dangerous, and they often did in Eazy's world, these were the guys who would step up without hesitation. One major example of this loyalty came when there were rumors that a white supremacist group, the KKK, had allegedly put a hit out on Eazy. Now, whether or not that story was blown out of proportion, Eazy himself reportedly said that if anything had happened to him, it would have set off a full-scale riot in Compton. Why? Because the Mexican gangs would have gone to war for him. That's how deep their loyalty ran.
He said, remember when the KKK had that hit on you? And he said, I bet if something had happened to me, the Mexicans would have been down, you know? And he said, if something happened to me, he goes, I think there would have been a riot.
But long before he signed legendary Chicano rap groups or worked with Latino artists, Eazy had tight relationships with the Mexican homies in his circle. One of his closest friends early on was a Mexican-American named Damon Trujillo, better known as Crazy D. If you look closely at the cover of NWA and the Posse, NWA's very first album, you'll notice something that threw fans off for years. Here's the thing, NWA stood for N with attitude. So when people saw the album cover, they couldn't help but wonder who the one person that obviously didn't fit the name was. At first, rumors started floating around that someone might have photoshopped themselves into the iconic picture. But if you go back and look up the real album cover, they're all the same. That man standing proudly in the photo is Crazy D. Crazy D wasn't just there for the picture though. At that time, he was actually more involved with NWA than some of its core members, like MC Ren, who only ended up in the photo because he happened to be with his friends that day. Crazy D wasn't just part of the crew, he was contributing to their music too. In fact, he was credited on NWA's first single ever, Panic Zone, where he helped shape the sound they were building. In a way, Crazy D proves that Eazy's bond with the Mexican community was there from the very beginning. But Eazy's relationship with the Latino community didn't stop there. Years later, he would go on to cement that connection in a big way when he signed Brownside. Brownside, in particular, was something special. Under Eazy's guidance, they became pioneers of Chicano rap, laying down the blueprint for how the genre would sound and feel. But Brownside wasn't just another rap group trying to capitalize on a trend. These guys were real gangsters, straight out of the streets, with stories to tell. Everything they rapped about was authentic. There were no exaggerations, no clout-chasing antics, just raw, real-life experiences that reflected who they were.
Came up and started blasting 'cause I knew they couldn't fake it. And I'm straight gang related.
One of the most legendary stories about Brownside's loyalty to Eazy comes from the height of the Ruthless Records versus Death Row Records beef. But as Toker later explained, Brownside played a huge role in keeping Eazy safe during this time. According to Toker, he and the Brownside crew showed up at Ruthless Records right when things started getting heated between Eazy and Suge. Toker described it as almost fate, like destiny brought them there at just the right time. Death Row's crew had assumed they could overpower Eazy because they thought he was alone and vulnerable. But they were wrong. Brownside was already there, ready to ride for Eazy without hesitation. Toker said they let Eazy know straight up, "We're here, and we're ready to back you up no matter what."
We got to Ruthless when the Death Row Ruthless beef was cracking. So they thought they were gonna overpower my boy because my boy was by himself. But you know Destiny's a motherfucker. Destiny took Toker and the Brownside clique to Ruthless.
Toker said that during one of their conversations, they told Eazy straight up, "If there's anyone you want gone, just say the word." Eazy, being the kind of guy he was, tried to brush it off. He told them, "It's not like that, man," trying to downplay the situation. But Toker wasn't having it. He looked Eazy in the eye and said, "Nah, it's exactly like that."
Told E, we rolling with you, fool. We got your back. What's cracking with this Death Row Ruthless? Who you want gone? Cause we ain't around.
Toker made it clear to Eazy that if he just mentioned a name, they'd handle it, and he wasn't bluffing. Toker said they had youngins, kids who were 15 or 16 years old, that were more than ready to step up and do the job. In Toker's words, at most they'll let them out when they're 22, so you don't gotta worry about a thing. That's how serious they were.
I'm gonna send my little young juvenile torpedo so they can go ahead and do YA life. They're gonna let my boys out when they're 22 years old. Don't worry about it.
After that conversation, things between Eazy and the Mexican community became even tighter. Eazy knew he had an army behind him. Wherever he went, fancy restaurants, important meetings, or events, he'd call up Brownside and his Mexican homies to roll with him. They weren't just there for show either. These guys were ready for whatever. They were hoping to run into anyone from Death Row Records so they could make a statement and prove to Eazy that they had his back till the very end. And one day, they got their chance. According to Toker, Eazy was chilling at a cheesecake factory when about 7 or 8 guys claiming to be affiliated with Death Row appeared. These guys surrounded Eazy, trying to intimidate him. These dudes were trying to flex their strength, maybe thinking they'd caught him alone and vulnerable.
And there was like 7, 8 motherfuckers that claimed Death Row waiting for their cars to pull up because they were leaving the Cheesecake Factory. Right when my boy E walked past them, they all surrounded him. "What's up?" And they were saying the N-word.
But they didn't realize what they had walked into. Out of nowhere, the tables turned. Suddenly, the Death Row guys found themselves surrounded, and not just by a few people. Toker described it as feeling like they were at a Mexican soccer field. The entire place was filled with Mexican gang members who showed up to protect Eazy. These weren't random guys either. They were real gangsters, people who didn't play around.
And all of a sudden, them 7, 8 motherfuckers looked around like, we're surrounded. They thought they were at a Mexican soccer field surrounded by Mexican soccer players, but it was us. I said, "What's up, man? You motherfuckers got beef with my brother Eazy?" They were like, "Oh, damn. You motherfuckers got beef with my little brother Eazy? You got beef with me, motherfuckers." And then my little homie started coming out with the heat. They were like, "No, man."
The Death Row affiliates were completely shook. The intimidation game flipped on them real quick, and they knew they were outnumbered. Without wasting any time, they scrambled out of there, jumping into their cars and speeding off like their lives depended on it. And just to send a message, Toker and the crew didn't let them leave quietly. Toker told them straight up, "In case y'all want to come back, you're more than welcome. We'll be right here waiting." In the end, Eazy-E, the one who had defended Jerry Heller for so long, finally saw the truth. Jerry really had been robbing him blind, and Eazy eventually fired him. Unfortunately, Eazy passed away not long after, and it seems like the wife he entrusted with his estate might not have been the best choice either.